everybody, Ron here with My Daily Bread. Excited that you're here with us for My Daily Bread, the podcast. I have an incredible guest with us today. Not just a guest, a friend, a sister, a colleague, my doctor of all things, right? And also just someone very near and dear to my heart. We go to church together. We get to enjoy life together. We're going to Israel together. She's a member of the My Daily Bread family that meets every morning, Dr. Ana Lara. And I'm so excited, Doc, that you're with us today. We have so many things and so many directions that we can go today. I don't even know what we're calling this podcast yet. I have no idea. Neither of us have an idea exactly where we're headed, but we know that this conversation is ordained and supposed to be. And we finally were able to make it work in the schedule. So welcome to My Daily Bread, the podcast. I'm happy you're here.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm excited to be here. I know we didn't have anything specifically planned, but I know that it's going to be a great conversation because between the two of us, we have a lot of knowledge and wisdom.
Absolutely. We have a lot of experience.
A lot of experience.
Kind of walked through a wild year, didn't we?
That's all it is. It's wild.
Oh man, what a year.
Yeah.
We are actually right up on a year anniversary of when we started the journey through some stormy seas, some really troubled waters that up until the very end, we did not have any clue that it was going to end the way it did. Yet, in all of that experience, we grew and we transformed in many areas of life that we never saw coming. But we know that those things have a greater purpose and a greater work for the future. And somehow, God will get the glory in everything that has transpired over the last year. There's a visual image that keeps coming to mind from last year. There's this beautiful reminder, even Pastor Penny was reminding me this morning, of the boxing gloves that you brought to the house about a year ago. When we started this journey with Pastor B, his health journey, when things took a sudden shift in his health. And this is what he would say of you. And I'll probably cry today.
We're right there. We're both going to cry.
And at some point, we'll get tissues or something. But I'll never forget. Every time you would walk in the room, he would say, "There's my angel. There she is." And if anyone knows him, he had zero confidence in our current medical system. Rightfully so.
Yeah. He was terrified of doctors.
Those of you who are doctors and nurses out there that listen to this podcast, I'm not slamming you. I think that I'm not slamming you. That's all I need to say.
But here's the thing is that you're not slamming them, but this is a learning opportunity for people who are in the healthcare industry because you need to be very mindful of how you carry yourself, how you communicate with people, how you acknowledge them, how you look at them. Most doctors don't look at their patients. Right now, they're not even physically doing exams on them. How do you know your patient? We need to go back to the traditional roots of medicine and develop relationships. And so, Pastor Brian was one of many people in the world, millions of people that don't like doctors, that are afraid of that whole experience of going to see a doctor or a hospital. And it shouldn't be that way. These are people that we should feel safe to go to for guidance. But when people are not seen, they're not heard, they're not respected, they're not acknowledged, and they're not properly guided, you create this anxiety around that. So I honor people who do have that, and I am very fragile in my approach with them because I want them to feel comfortable in my presence. Right now I'm dressed up, but as you know, I don't normally dress up. I'm in my scrubs. I don't wear a white coat. I keep it my office is very, kind of like a home.
One of the best medical office experiences I've ever had in my
I
life.
wanted
Is
to
at your
smell
office.
good. I wanted to feel comfortable. I have to have some medical equipment, but I don't want that to be the first interaction that people have, the first experience. Right now, it's about the experience that people have in anything that they engage with.
Will you tell us what kind of medicine you practice, so people who don't know you and maybe only see you on the call in the mornings, or see you at church, or see you when we're getting together, meeting different things.
Yeah.
Tell everybody what kind of medicine you practice, what brought you into practicing this kind of medicine. We want to know about Dr. Ana.
Okay. Well, I'm a naturopathic medical doctor. And here in Arizona, we have the widest scope of practice compared to any other state. So that allows me to prescribe, medications, but I'm also trained from the beginning how to integrate natural medicine into that. So when I approach a person, I'm looking at the whole person, not just their symptoms or their disease state. So when people ask me, what conditions do you treat? I tell them I don't treat conditions. I work with people. Because if I just isolate the condition or symptoms, I'm overlooking the whole person. And so I'm looking at them, the physical aspect, the mental, emotional aspect, and yes, the spiritual aspect, which is very sensitive in medicine to talk about spirituality, to talk about God. But you cannot have healing without this part of, this is who we are. Mm-hmm. So if we don't address the spiritual aspect of who we are, we're never going to really properly heal. It'll make it that much more difficult to heal if we don't integrate this part. So I do look at every area of a person's lifestyle, their sleep, their diet, are they exercising, stressors, relationship stressors, work stress, all of that, because this is going to affect the decisions that they make when it comes to their health, how they're eating and how they're living their life. So I still do all the labs, I still do imaging, I do all of those things.
Sure do.
But in addition to that, I have what I call my toolbox. And I don't just use one tool, I use many tools with a person, and it's all based on what that person is presenting to me. So it could be herbs, it could be acupuncture, it could be physical therapies. I do a lot of hands-on therapies. Those are my favorite, actually. And I learned those intentionally because I realized if anything goes wrong in the world and I don't have access to the herbs and the medicines, I have my hands. And the therapeutic healing touch it's very important part of a person's healing. There's a lot that can happen there.
Can we talk a little bit about what you just said? You have your hands. I experienced that firsthand.
Yeah.
After Pastor B passed away, and doggone it.
It's okay. It's okay.
Experiencing like high stress from disappointment.
Yeah.
Unmet expectations. Just a plethora of things were piling up, right? And life was happening. Life was continuing to go on, and I was stuck in a moment of life. And so I came to your office, and you helped me with, and you can correct me if I have the term wrong, it was cranial sacral therapy. And I will never forget the first session that you did that therapy on me, the vision that I had, the light bulb filament coming together, and then explain that therapy and explain how that experience, what it does to our brain when we are in those high stress experiences, when we're living out of emotion and all of those things.
Absolutely. I have to say that is one of my favorite therapies. And I know God put that therapy right in front of me to take up because, so this therapy, it's a very light manual touch therapy. And it's not just the head, but it's the whole body. A person lays there fully clothed. It's not a massage. Most of the time people won't feel a lot. Unless they're very sensitive, then they'll feel and they'll experience like you did. But it's me assessing a certain rhythm in the body from the legs up to the head. And the best way to explain it without getting really sciencey on everyone is what I feel in my hands. It's like like electricity running down the body. And for most people who are under stress, it's a wiry kind of, energy of that I feel in their body. And that's letting me know that the nervous system is off. there's a lot of stress in the body. So the moral of the therapy is to put the person into a resting state, which is the parasympathetic state. Because as we know that, there's the sympathetic and parasympathetic. Parasympathetic is when we're resting, and that's where we need to be in order to heal and process better. Sympathetic state, that's when we're stressed out, fight, flight, freeze for some people, but that is, not the state to be consistently in. And unfortunately, a lot of people are constantly in the stress mode.
A consistent state of stress.
Almost every single person that comes to me when I do this therapy, sometimes I'm like, I'm just curious, lay on the table. I want to see what's going on. And because they're telling me I'm fine. I'm not stressed. Hey, I get it. I'm that person that I don't feel my stress till it's too late. So I'm like, really? So they lay down and it's like chords of a guitar, like down that kind of vibration. And once I start to work with them, they completely go into this like everything's just powered off. It's a reset. It's a reset of the nervous system without their input, without their decision. And I work with many different age groups. So I've had kids with, ADHD and autistic, and you name all the behavioral issues. And at first they're squirming all over and I'm moving with them on that while they're on the table. But eventually I get them to go into this rest state. It's almost like putting them on the chokehold.
Listen up.
It's a gentle choke, but they just go into resting. And most of the time the parents are there and they're like, how did you do that? Like, teach me that. And it's not that easy to teach. It's a process to learn it because you have to learn to listen with your hands, not with your mind.
You keep coming back to the hands, and I think that's a really important point to make. The scripture says to lay hands on the sick and they will recover. And we've had this idea growing up in our Pentecostal churches that, that's you come down to the altar, someone lays hands on you and anoints you with oil. And I believe in all of that. Yeah, absolutely believe in that. What really stands out to me in that principle is our hands are meant to heal, not to hurt.
Amen to that.
And that a lot of people, I think millions of people around the world, if they could just have someone's hands put on them in a healing manner, their entire lives would change. Like I remember you telling me in that therapy, you described it as the two hemispheres of my brain coming back together because they were divided.
Yes, that's what was so fascinating. What you saw was the membrane that sits between the two hemispheres of the brain. I never showed it to you.
Never.
We never talked about it.
I knew nothing about what you were doing.
And when you said that, I took out my not my skull, but my model that I have there. And I said, this is what you're looking at. And that part of the brain is what's responsible for creating the cerebral spinal fluid, which nourishes the brain to protect it and nourishes the whole spinal cord. And there is movement in this fluid. There's something else going on in that fluid. It has to protect the brain and the spinal cord, which, it's the most important part. And that's also the very first part that's created in our mother's womb.
Oh,
is
my
our
goodness.
Brain and our spinal cord. So this fluid is nourishing that, and that's what you saw was this membrane that's between the two hemispheres of the brain. And oftentimes we are disconnected from even ourselves, that there is no communication from one side to the other. So when there's a hold that I'm holding under the head and I'm forcing that to come together, and it's like putting you in a resting state. It works all the time.
What are the things that you do to help you after you have poured out so much with your patients? Because I think this is something that a lot of people forget. There's a lot of pastors that watch. There are a lot of ministry leaders that watch our podcast, and we're always on the pouring into side of the relationship. And oftentimes we get so consumed pouring out that we forget to refill our tank. So what do you do, and what do you recommend for people that have the ministry that you have? Because what you do is a ministry.
It sure is.
And pastors and teachers and leaders, what do you recommend? How do you fill your tank?
That's a great question. And that's something that with time and experience, you definitely see that you have to do it. It's a must. For me, it's exercise. I have to move my body. Kickboxing was is my lifesaver. You know, I have fortunately gotten to a
You
point.
have to follow her on social media because she kicks butt, let me tell you.
I have gotten to a point where at first I did kickboxing because I was angry and I was stressed and frustrated with what was going on in the world. But then now that has changed to a love for the art of moving and doing something physical with your body. So I no longer do it because I'm angry and frustrated. I do it because of the learning the technique. And after every time I do kickboxing, I feel like I meditated. I feel so calm and chill. Like I have to give myself a little bit of time before I go and drive. So physical movement for me has been very important. Meditation is the other, because you have to have a balance of, you know, these things. But I would tell you, I love my sleep. I do. And that's something that I say now with pride, to say I love to sleep and sleep is a priority to me, because I used to feel guilty about sleeping when I was younger. I felt like I had to, in order to succeed, I had to burn the candle on both ends. And that's what drove me to, you know, being out of balance and in disease state. So I learned through my life that that's wrong. Our society is wrong to tell young people, work hard, keep working hard, sacrifice sleep, sacrifice eating, sacrifice these things. This is a lifelong, you know, we have to teach people to be healthy for the marathon.
Yeah.
If you've ever ran a marathon, you know, you don't start off running super fast. You have to hydrate and nourish your body a certain way, prepare to be able to handle that kind of a distance. And life is the same way. We cannot tell young people to do that. Let me tell you why. I see a lot of young people in their 20s and even teenagers that when I do tests on them, I check their hormones, they're depleted, they're low. And there's no way that a 44-year-old woman should have better hormones than a 20-year-old. And that's because they're not eating right. They're not eating enough. They're not eating enough protein. They're eating a lot of junk and processed foods. They're skipping a lot of meals throughout their day. They're not moving. They're not sleeping because they're on their technology all night. And kids, young people need to sleep early. So I take sleep very serious. So I don't do anything. I always joke around and say I'm pretty boring, you know. I like to.
You are anything but boring.
According
But
to
we'll
the
let
world,
her say that.
the
According to
world
the
will
world,
say I'm
Dr.
boring.
Anna is not boring. Let me tell you.
I love myself. I love the way I am, and I like to be in peaceful states. I don't like to put myself in situations that it's gonna rob me of my joy and peace. To me, that's unhealthy.
Sure. Tell us how trauma has affected your practice.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I sometimes I feel like I'm the counselor and not the doctor. So I wear many hats in my practice.
Yes, you do.
And, you know, I'm a teacher, I'm a doctor, I'm a healer. I will claim that now when I didn't before. I am a counselor. And I rely on the greatest counselor of all, Jesus, to guide me through these moments. Because from 2020 and on, I see a lot of, you know, people with trauma. Well, 2020 developed trauma in people.
Sure.
And all ages, even when people didn't think they were experiencing a trauma, I clearly see that they are.
The whole COVID
thing.
experience was
Yes.
traumatic to the world,
Everything.
wasn't it?
From children, it didn't matter your race, your income, your education. I mean, hey, I even found myself, you know, late last year, earlier this year, thinking, you know, I didn't think I was being affected by COVID, but I do, because now I look at, even at my clinic, I look at my storage room and I see that I have too much Clorox wipes. I have too much of this. I still am in this pattern of scarcity. I have to have these things there just in case they're out. That's a trauma response. It might be subtle,
sure
but it's like, I don't
is. Yeah.
need that much Clorox wipes in my office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so many people are afraid to have these conversations.
Yeah.
I'm not.
I'm not either.
I learned a lot over the last 3 years. I learned that the whole world experienced trauma, and how we deal with it will determine how we move forward and experience the future. And so I love talking about these things. I've been very playing with you about my philosophy on COVID and the vaccine and all the stuff. And I'm certainly not trying to trigger any kind of political conversation because I don't care about politics. It's not a thing for me anymore. But I have some strong beliefs about the whole experience behind all of that stuff. I think what's more important is, instead of getting attention on the things, the belief systems I have about that experience, what would you say is the role of nutrition in how we recover from trauma, how we recover from disease, and how we deal with future disease that don't even know anything about yet?
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to go back to creation.
Go for it.
God created this body, and he made no mistake when he created that. And he created everything in our world so that we can live off of this world and be symbiotic with it. So all of those things are in our world. Of course, we're in different times right now. But when we go back to the beginnings of that, there is nothing wrong with the body. What's wrong with the body is the choices we make. And the big one is food. You cannot eat foods that have all these artificial colors and not expect to have a negative outcome. Our brain is hugely impacted by blue dyes and red dyes and all of the colors.
You mean like Sour Patch Kids and gummy bears and all that stuff?
Yes, we can't have that.
No.
Apart from
road
the sugar,
candy, I call it.
yeah. I mean, you have it once in a while, but I will tell you, when you remove those things out of your diet and then you introduce them back, you will feel the difference. So a lot of the mental health that I see, especially in kids, behavioral issues, gut issues, it's all because of what they're eating. So if we cut out all the processed foods and we start eating whole foods, eat your vegetables and your fruits and your proteins, your grains, you're going to be much better off mentally than if you continued the diet that what I see a lot too is that people are not eating. They're not eating. They're not having breakfast. They're having a late lunch around, maybe 12, but 1 or 2 o'clock. There's a lot of sloppy intermittent fasting that's not done appropriately. And so if you don't have the nutrients, if you don't have the proteins, the carbohydrates, right? The carbohydrates that are complex, that are from vegetables and fruits, all of those foods have vitamins and minerals, that if you ate right, you wouldn't have to supplement as much. And if you had enough protein, here's the trick, ladies. I see this in women a lot. If you want to lose weight, eat more protein. Cut out all the simple sugars, and most of the time you will lose it. Proteins are the building blocks of our DNA. Proteins are in every hormone and every neurotransmitter, along with a lipid, which is a fat, a healthy fat, an omega-3. So if you don't have salmon is great, because you have a protein and you have omega-3. So instead of supplementing, you can have that in a food. And, we got to get away from this traditional breakfast idea. Like, it has to be pancakes and cereal. No, you can have chicken too. You can have salmon. You can have a salad.
She's calling me out, y'all. She's
Stop
calling me out.
Pancakes with syrup. I mean, you can have that once in a while, but that's not the way to start the day. It really
I agree.
isn't. Yeah.
I've measured this personally. I can tell a difference when I have a protein in the morning, like for a long time, probably years. I did chicken breast and a grapefruit for breakfast.
That's great.
I mean, I was so committed to it. Anybody could say Ron has chicken breast and grapefruit for breakfast. I've gotten away from that. Yeah. I'll get back to that.
To it.
I can tell the difference when I eat a pancake for breakfast.
Oh yeah.
And when I have a chicken breast for breakfast.
Yeah.
Total different day.
See, I would rather not have the pancake and do the intermittent fasting versus having the pancake. But of course, I would rather have my eggs and my veggies with that, because that is going to give me power to, especially if you're a student, if you're doing a lot of thinking, a lot of analytical work,
your brain needs it.
Your brain needs it. It needs a lot of it. That's the fuel that it needs. So I want people to look at food as not, an event or, as a celebration, but it's energy that your body needs. You're feeding your body life. And here's the thing that God told me early on in my journey of healing was, eat the foods that have life.
Yes.
Because if you eat food that has life, you're going to feel alive. But if you're eating foods that are dead, and I'm not talking about animal proteins, because there's
Right.
there's a lot of other benefits there too. And I can go on the vegan thing too. Like, I see a lot of unhealthy vegans because they're eating processed food. That's not a vegan. A vegan should eat the whole plants.
The whole plants.
The whole plants. The grains, the nuts, and the seeds. There's a lot of foods that have proteins in them that are, vegetarian. So I would say that I see a huge correlation of mental health when it comes to the nutrition part. And once in the gut, once we address healing the gut and the nutrition, what we do is we peel back a layer. We let the body, simmer down. It's less emotional. The mind is clearer. And now we can address
There you go.
the mental issues. What part is really you and what was the physiology that was affecting you? Oh, now we reduce this to being able to see clearer what the real issue is.
That's so good.
It's amazing.
You segued right into the next part really well. So you go from, we're separating what's physiological, right? Is that what you said?
The physiological, yes.
Physiological from what is happening emotionally. Is that what you said? And then how does all of this play into healthy mind and body, into healthy spirit?
Yeah. Life is, people are like a Rubik's Cube.
I love those.
I love it too. It's a challenge. And every person is a unique Rubik's Cube to me. And I let them show me who they are.
Yeah.
And that's where, for me, the relationship is really important. Because if someone's coming in for a transaction, I can't work. I don't work that way.
Nope.
I can't work with you.
You sure don't.
That's not the way God wired me to be. So when I develop that relationship, some people from the beginning will show me, and sometimes it's a process of peeling back those layers. But when the body is so disturbed by, stress in general, when I say stress, I want to define stress in my opinion.
Okay.
Because stress is not just social stress, the mental, emotional stressors. There is a chemical stress, the physiological stress that has to do with what we eat, and chemicals in our environment create a stress in the body. The body doesn't recognize this thing, and it has to react. There's a chemical reaction. And so physically, you can have a stressor. If you're in an accident, if you fall, that's an injury. It's a stress on the body. The immune system has to work to repair that. And so it's a stress. It's an extra burden on the body to do. When the person heals on the physical level, you're going to notice that your mind is calmer. You're not as reactive emotionally to people or to situations. And this allows you to have more mental clarity to really look at the trauma or the issues without being reactive or taking things personal.
Okay.
Once people are able to do that part of it, it's natural. I believe we're naturally curious to want to know, why are we here? Where did I come from?
That's inside
And what am I here to do? That's inside of all of us. For me, that started when I was 6.
How did you find that?
It was the reason I went down that rabbit hole at 6 was because I experienced a family member dying for the first time. I didn't know what dying was. I thought that I didn't know. I just didn't know we died. And when I did experience, the death of, it was one of my aunts. I didn't grow up with, close family here in Arizona. Everyone was in Mexico. And so aunts, uncles, cousins, I didn't grow up with them. So the first time I met an aunt, she was like the cool aunt. And I loved her, and I had this great relationship and bond with her. So when she was young too, she was like 27.
Oh, wow.
And, she's gone. I didn't see where she went. And then there's a funeral. And in Mexico, the funerals, they have them in the homes.
Yes.
So there's a casket, and curious little 6-year-old me goes up and touches her. And I didn't need anyone to explain to me. It was my touch that I knew life wasn't there anymore.
Oh, wow.
And my brain went into complete shock.
Wow.
So that it was a trauma that I later on healed, in my life. But I remember immediately the next day constantly thinking about, where is she? Where does she go? I wanted to know, where does she go? Because she's not in that body anymore. And so I, imagined, what was life after death? And if we die, why are we here? Why did God put me here if I'm going to die one day? And where did I come from? Where did I come from? Why am I here? What am I doing here? And when I die, where am I going? At the age of 6, and it was just an ongoing internal conversation I had with myself. And some people might say, oh, poor little girl. No, it was the greatest blessing God could have given me, because it helped me to explore my own existence and why he has us here. And it was, a lifelong journey that I went down through experiencing that. Yeah.
That's awesome. What made you want to be a doctor?
It was my own experience with doctors.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that trauma had something to do with my illness, part of it. When I was 20, I lost a brother to leukemia. And instead of me expressing emotion, I was strong and resilient, and I toughed it out, and I just kept going through life. And it was pretty quick. 7 years after his death, my body was no longer letting me function. My brain was just not letting me function. And I still kept functioning. I still kept working. I was a top performer in my industry. I kept doing what I was doing. But my body slowly started to tell me, we're not doing this anymore. And I remember telling my colleagues, I feel like my soul is dragging my body through this life right now.
Wow, what a description.
I felt like
I literally saw that while you were saying that.
Right?
Wow.
And I could feel like I would say it's like my inner light is just dimming down. I felt like my inner light, like my spirit was dying. And eventually that led me to go in and see a doctor. And I was not happy with her approach.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, here's a script for that and this. And I'm 27 years old. She's writing scripts. And I'm like, okay, how long do I take this for? And she looked at me. She said, for the rest of your life? And immediately I said, nope, not me. So I negotiated with her. I said, I'm not going to do this one or that one. Tell me which ones are the most important ones. I asked, what can I change with my diet? And she said nothing. I know at that time I believed her. But then as some time went by, I will say this. When I left that office that day, though, Ron, I left with a question in my mind. And that was, what did I do that got me here? Because there's some things I did that got me here. I completely took ownership and responsibility, whether I was consciously aware of my actions or not. So what did I do to get here? Because if I could figure out what I did that got me here, then I can undo it.
Man, say that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
if I can
good.
figure out how I got here, I can undo it. And that from that point on, I relied on God's guidance more and more than anything, because I wasn't getting the answers out here. I wasn't. And it took me about, 5 years or so to get my health together. And I found a natural doctor that helped me get to the last 10% of my health, because I still knew something was off. I just didn't know what it was. And after I got feeling like even better than I was in my 20s, to be honest with you, I'm like 32, 33 at this time, and I'm feeling the greatest I've ever felt in my life. And of course, I'm more conscious.
Yeah.
I'm more self-aware. I have experience. And I found myself thinking, how many people are out there suffering with illness, and they might not be as determined as I am. They stop at the first no. How many people are out there suffering and not getting solutions? And I thought, I should become a doctor. And it was like, no, I'm not. I don't want to go back to school. I have a daughter. I don't want to do all that again. But I told that to a chiropractor friend of mine, and she was like, you should go back. And I'm like, I can't be one of
those type of people.
Yeah, I do. She was just very, you should go back. And I thought, what am I going to do? I'm not going to be a medical doctor. I don't want to do that type of medicine. And she was the one who told me there's a naturopathic medical school here in Tempe. I looked into it, Ron. I looked into it immediately. I had the next week, I was there at the school. I was like, this is it. This is the place for me.
I love that.
And I thought, okay, I don't have a background in science. My background was business finance. I thought, okay, I'll go back and, get the prerequisites. We'll see how I do with the sciences. And as usual, I sat front and center in the class and I geeked out. I was like, wow, wow. Like the biology, the anatomy, physiology, all of these classes where I just loved it because I was in a different time and space in my life that I can appreciate learning the way the body functions. And I don't understand why more people in science don't believe in God and are atheists or have other ideas, because the more I studied the human body, I knew there has to be a creator for all of this. It's just too complex.
Too complex.
For a human to do, or just for something randomly to make a human. It's so beautiful and so complex. And when you get to see the body that way, because I did get to dissect the body, for a full year, every part of, can you imagine holding the brain and the heart and all these organs? I feel like more people deserve that opportunity to see that, because if they did, you would think of, what am I putting into my body to take care of it? I know we're all going to die at one point.
Sure.
But why not live
That's
a life
a requirement.
Two things, right? In this life, we're going to pay taxes
We're going to pay taxes.
die.
We're going to die. Yes, we are.
So why not live a life of quality? Live a life of quality. Slow down, make some changes, adapt yourself to a different lifestyle, and live a life of quality.
Yeah. Can we switch a little bit? I want to switch into one of our experiences last year that you are going all in with now. In fact, you're taking it to another level. And it was something that I guess it was close to the same therapy when I had COVID, when I came in and had UV therapy, right?
It's ozone with ultraviolet light therapy.
Yeah. And I remember in my COVID experience, which I have no idea if they're going to bleep us out or not. I don't care. This was just my experience, right?
Yeah.
This is my testimony.
Their testimony.
I remember when I came into your office, having COVID, getting that therapy done and feeling better the next day. Like, it was amazing.
It is amazing.
I felt energized. I felt alive. The effects of the illness at that time, that virus, didn't seem to really play a big part at all. It was just amazing. And after that is a therapy that you actually practiced on Pastor Brian after he found out that cancer had spread throughout his body. And talk to us about that therapy, because I want to give a testimony about what I saw happen in him each time you would practice that therapy and what you're doing with it now.
And so ozone, it's medical ozone, not what's in the atmosphere. Medical ozone, it's 3 oxygen molecules that are bound to one. So what it does, it forces the oxygen into the red blood cells. So the red blood cells are more oxygenated. And, the oxygen helps the delivery of the red blood cell to carry its nutrients and functions throughout. But with the ultraviolet light combined, these 2 therapies are very powerful. What it does, it helps eradicate any pathogen, anything that doesn't belong there. So whether it's a virus, a bacteria, yeast, fungus, parasites, cancer cells, it helps modulate the immune system. So it means bringing it to balance. If it's low, if it's high, it'll bring it to balance. It helps reduce inflammation. It helps restore mitochondria, which mitochondria is the energy producing part of every cell. We have tons of them in our millions in our nervous system, in our brain, thousands in our heart, and hundreds in our muscles and the rest of our body and organs. This is the energy that our cells need, and this helps with the function of that. So it's a therapy that I did use for a lot of viral, infectious cases, but it's like immediately when I got this equipment, I didn't even advertise this. No. This is how I know God was working through all this time. I was not advertising. I didn't tell anybody, and people were showing up. But I remember the first time I had, in 2020, a cancer patient approached me for help. And I was like, nope. I told myself I was not going to do oncology when I was in medical school. I didn't want to do that. And here I am, 3 years out, upgrading my whole process to allow more oncology work to be done. So I am bringing a new therapy it's including the ozone, but it's oxygen, it's ozone, it's the ultraviolet light, and it's the red light therapy. All in one. All the person does is sits there. There's an IV in one arm and then the other, and they're just sitting there, and the blood is just being kind of like a dialysis machine for this one.
That's how it looked.
Yeah. With the one we did with you and Pastor Brian, it was I had to draw blood, put it in a bag, and put the ozone in there, and then it would pass through the machine. So this is a little bit different. It uses dialysis tubing, all of that, for all of this to function. And so it's supposed to be about 90% more efficient than what I'm doing right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Big stuff.
I can remember every time we did that therapy about twice a week, maybe more. I don't remember.
Like 2-3 times
a week. Every time he would receive that therapy, he was energized for like 2 days. Yeah. It was just amazing to see the turn in his body. His body would respond. He would rest. He would have the ability and the capacity to get up out of bed and eat. His appetite would increase. His energy would increase. His mood increased. His clarity of mind and thought, all of that improved every time you did the therapy. And I personally watched how that gave him quality of life in the end of his life that helped him to just enjoy his days with the family and being the kids around. And it was a powerful. Yeah. How are you seeing that, if we're allowed to talk about this, and you don't have to if you can't, how are you seeing this affect cancer patients that you're working with now?
I think if I catch them early on, they have a much better outcome. Yeah, I've had tumors completely dissolved, gone. Wow. And I mean, I'm talking about like stage 4 in some patients. I had a young man, the first patient I had, he, the cancer, he had metastasized his brain, his kidneys, several areas. And he was 24. He did a couple chemotherapies and it just wiped him out. He was super weak, low weight, hair loss. And every therapy, we did with cancer patients, I do 3 therapies with them. With this new therapy, it'll only be 1 time a week. That's how strong it is.
Wow.
We won't need to do 3 times, which is great. But every week he got better. Every month his hair was growing back. He was regaining energy. I mean, this young man, he had to have someone drive him to his visits because he had to stop working. It was just very debilitating. And within months, he started to drive himself to the office, and every time we did the imaging and scanning, they were getting smaller and smaller. So I see a complete difference if we treat this early on, especially if I don't want to say this. This is just my observation.
Sure.
But when I see people who haven't done the chemo, the radiation, especially now, I see that their outcomes are better. And it's because it's such an aggressive therapy with these chemo radiation therapies. It's blasting everything, and it's not helping the body really to regain its energy and strength to keep going. Where these therapies, it's doing it all. It's getting rid of the things that don't need to be there, but strengthening what I call the terrain, the body, strengthening the terrain and body to do that. It's either way. I work with, it's the patient's decision.
Yep.
And I respect that, and I'm there to support them. And of course, we still do all the diet and sleeping and making sure they're sleeping well, and, mindset. I really have to tap into people. Like, I have diagnosed people with a cancer, so they haven't gone to an oncologist. And I will tell the people, don't go telling everyone that you have this cancer.
Save this. This is important to say.
Yeah. Don't go telling everyone, because not everyone is privileged to know that. And you don't want their negativity or their fears to impact you. I really believe in the power of your thoughts and your words. And a lot of people are not very conscious of what they're saying, and what they're saying could be hurtful to them, and they're not even aware. So I like, guard yourself. Just don't share it. Maybe your husband, your wife, the important people, and prepare them like, this isn't my cancer. Understand? I can't stand when people say my diabetes, my anxiety, it's not yours.
Stop owning it.
It's not a thing for you to own.
Yeah.
It's something you're experiencing. There's an imbalance in your body. Let me explain this to you. Disease. The word dis, in Latin means without, away, lack. It's without. The word disease is without ease. The word dysfunction, it's without function.
Without function.
There's, what's the other? There's dysfunction, there's disease. And when you do have disorder means without order. And that's that the body doesn't have order. It doesn't have this ease of flow, and it doesn't have the proper functions that it has. So that's what disease is. It's just a state of that's not in ease, something's out of order. So what do we need to do to restore it? And that's different for everyone.
That's the question.
Yeah.
And everyone is individual.
It's
not the same answer for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Institutionalized medicine has made it the same answer.
Yeah.
But it's individual
easy.
As our fingerprint.
Yeah, the institutionalized medicine, and this is where I always protect doctors and people who work in that industry. It's not their fault.
No.
The system was created to be that way, to streamline processes, to streamline things.
Sure.
But we're not streamlined people.
Mm-mm.
We're not. Everyone's unique.
Yeah.
You have two people with diabetes, and they're both treated differently in my office because they have different experiences, and they react to experiences differently, and they react to food and medicines differently. So this is where, I can't just put them all through a process line and treat them all the same. It doesn't work.
That's so good. My goodness. Going back to the therapy, the UV therapy that we were talking about, I can even remember having the conversation with Pastor Brian's oncologist, who was a different doctor that he had to have during that whole session. And he was all on board for those therapies. And he even... it's not written, but he even noticed the difference in his experiences with Pastor B during those therapies than other patients who did not have that with their treatments.
And I was really amazed at that, and I was glad at his response. I think more and more doctors are getting on board that there's other ways. And that it's okay to integrate them.
Sure it is.
And what I do, I'm trained to understand the medical part. I'm not just doing some woo-woo-y stuff and experimenting.
It's not voodoo. It's not black magic or any other. It's not sorcery. None of that.
Although Pastor Brian did name my tincture voodoo juice.
Yeah, voodoo juice.
Just for anxiety. And he's like, this is great, Dr. Lara. We're going to call it voodoo juice. I'm like, oh, well, if you say so. So it stayed that way.
He was such a clown.
So when someone asks me for something for anxiety, I give them the voodoo juice.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah,
too.
It works. Yeah,
it really works. Yeah. What's in it?
It's just 3 herbs that I use.
Okay.
Passion flower, which is a beautiful flower. Passion flower. The Latin name is Passiflora incarnata, which means Passion of the Christ. If you Google passion flower, it looks like a 3-dimensional cross. It's beautiful.
My goodness.
God created this
He's
stuff
amazing.
for us to use.
He does.
He's reminding us he's in the medicine. He's in nature itself. The other one is lavender. And these are all tinctures, which are, you could orally take. And then the other one was valerian root.
Valerian root.
Yeah, that which is really calming for the nervous system.
What are, if you were just giving our audience like one of the most valuable pieces of the most helpful thing that you can say to them right now about their health and their emotional health, their spiritual health, their physical health, what's the most valuable thing that you can share with us?
I'm going to go back to nutrition.
Okay.
I'm going to say change how you eat, how often you eat, what you're eating. The quality of the food that you're eating really does matter. And I could say that 80-90% of a person's success is going to be determined on what they're eating. We are what we eat. And so I know it's hard. I've been there and fell off the bandwagon, but you got to get back and keep doing it. Add more protein. On average, people should be having, depending on their activity, so forth, at least 80 to 90 grams of protein a day.
Okay.
I aim for 150. And that's a lot. That's a lot of protein that you're eating. But 90 grams of protein divided in each meal, you're going to see a difference in your energy and mental clarity. Yeah, just in that. Cut out, don't drink your calories, I tell people. Eat your calories. So what I mean is
Yes.
cut out the drinks that have
The
sugar
sugary
in them.
drinks.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm all on board with
Yeah.
that.
And you'll notice just with those couple things, you'll notice a difference.
And
Drink more,
save money.
save money. And when you feel better,
Uh-huh.
you will make better decisions in your life. You
Mm-hmm.
really do. You'll feel less anxiety or depression. You'll have more energy. You will feel better.
So good. So good. My goodness. What was the most impactful thing that you personally learned in this journey this past year?
I learned that God is good, not because we say it or we hear it, but I saw it through this man. I have never seen, and I've seen a lot of people in their last moments of life as a doctor and as with family, but I have never seen someone praise the Lord to the last moment and with such gratitude. I mean, I knew Pastor Brian was genuine, but wow.
You got to see it.
I got to see it. That man had a lot of Jesus in him. He really did. And that's not something you can make up, because I've seen people in their darkest moments and they're not like that. And I know people who he's touched their life and they've shared so many years with him that he was genuine. He was the real deal. Holyfield. He was the real deal. Yeah. And that's why the gloves, going back to the gloves, that was symbolic to keep fighting, no matter what the outcome is, no matter where in life you may be going, you keep fighting. You keep getting up every day and you keep showing up and you keep giving it all you can. If you're only functioning 60% today, give 100% of that 60%. That's been my motto. Be a fighter,
That's
keep
so
going.
good.
Don't
Say
be
that again.
Keep going. Like, don't be a victim. Like, everyone has their challenges. You know, someone might see me, well, wow, she seems to have it together. You don't know me. You don't know where I came from and how I got here. But I can tell you the one thing was I kept getting up and I kept going and fighting through life. And I want that for others. I genuinely want others to get up and keep moving, keep seeking the help. Don't stop at no. You know, that resiliency, that spiritual and mental resiliency matters. And here's what God told me in 2020. He said, and I knew this wasn't for me, only for me, it was for everyone, is that we had to be spiritually, physically, mentally, and emotionally strong and resilient. So where are your weaknesses in those? Are you physically feeling vulnerable and like you're not strong? Then work on that. If you feel like you can develop yourself in the spiritual realm a little bit, well, then do that. You know, mentally, emotionally, do you feel like that? We all have weaknesses, but you know, work on strengthening yourself, because where we're heading in this life, if you're relying on another human to direct you and to tell you that what's reality, what's real. I mean, we already went through that a couple of years ago. What was real? Our reality was distorted. But you know what kept me real? God. God kept showing up and like, don't be deceived. Don't be fooled. Listen to my voice. Keep your eyes on me.
Man, I learned this past year to take no's power away from it.
Take no's power away.
Yeah. We fought every
Yeah.
day. And when a no would come, we'd find another way.
Yeah.
We'd fight another way. And I learned to fight this last year.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot about fighting from you, your tenacity. I mean, your approach last year, I think the part of the miracle that you probably don't really see is how much Pastor B refused traditional medicine and the practice of traditional medicine. And for him to open up to you like he did was a God thing. And you showed him, you like eased him into being able to change his mindset. And I all of that was just powerful to me.
It was powerful. And I will confess that he had the same effect on me.
Yeah.
Because I'm grateful that I got to express to him when he was healthy, that I just felt in the moment to say, you know, thank you, because you have also healed a part of me. The same fears that you had with doctors, I had with pastors.
Jeez.
And now I'm around so many pastors that that God is sending me patients who are pastors to help. And I'm like, really, God? Okay.
He has a way, doesn't he?
He has a way. He has a sense of humor, and that's good. I love it. But he healed that part of me, because I always had this relationship and connection with God, but I had been away from the church.
Sure.
And, he healed this part of me to see that, no, not all pastors are what I experienced. And he gave that to me. And I am forever grateful for that gift. Forever grateful.
We're everyday people, just like doctors. Doctors are everyday people. Nurses are everyday people. Pastors are everyday people who love God.
Yeah.
And are doing their very best.
Yeah.
To connect with Him and do life. I love it. I'm going to say it again as we close out. The visual image that I have almost daily are the boxing gloves, and how every day they were a reminder, keep fighting.
Keep fighting.
And Pastor B fought to the very end, and it was beautiful to watch. Difficult, but beautiful. And I hope that we are able to continue to pour into people's life. Don't you dare give up. Don't give up. Whatever your life is facing right now, if it's a physical concern, if it's an emotional concern, if it's a relational concern, if it's a spiritual concern, don't you dare cave to those voices that say you can't, you won't, you're not able to. That's not reality. The reality is that with your brothers and sisters in Christ gathered around you, you can do anything. I like what Pastor Lee taught me many, many years ago, and he preached this several times. His revelation, his personal revelation on the scripture in Philippians, somewhere in Philippians, I think, it says, I can do all things through Christ, which strengthens me. And he likened that to the people of God being the body of Christ, and that while maybe I can't do something, somebody else in the body of Christ can come up and do something in that regard and help me. And when they win, when you win, Dr. Anna, I win. When I win, you win. When we win, we all win.
We all win.
So I learned that principle. And so I'm telling you today, don't give up.
Don't give up.
Don't throw in the towel. It's tempting. You're stressed. You're feeling something. You're feeling trauma. You're experiencing life in very many different ways. But don't give up. You don't have to. You got too many people around you helping you. So give us some closing thoughts.
Kind of going along with what you're saying, I recently, a couple months ago, I had my kickboxing trainer ask me, what keeps you going when you're going through challenges, especially when he's really working me out. And I said, I remember what Jesus did on that cross, and everything else is nothing. It's nothing. It's not a big deal, because that is the ultimate sacrifice. I mean, would you be able to do that?
No.
Physically? I don't think many people understand.
We don't understand the gravity, do we?
Right here is where a nail was. There's no way. I mean, the pain that he endured, if we can't endure our own pain in this life, it's difficult. So we have to rely on Jesus and remember what he did on that cross was for all of us. And if he was able to do that, we can do it.
Amen. Amen. How can our audience reach out to you?
The best way to do it is to go to my website. It's raicesndmedcenter.com.
Will you spell that out?
RAICESNDMED, and then the word center.com. I have tons of information there. I do offer a free complimentary phone consultation. I get to learn about that, the person, and they get to ask me questions. And if we're a good fit, great. And if not, great. And I don't pressure anyone to come see me, because once again, it's about the relationship.
I love that. It's amazing. Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us for My Daily Bread, the podcast today. So excited that we got to have this conversation with Dr. Anna. If you are watching us on YouTube, do us a favor. All right. Subscribe, like our channel, comment on this video today, and also share it with somebody. Send it in a message. Send it in a direct message. If you're watching us on the My Daily Bread mobile app, thank you for watching and engaging with us. Let us know. Just send us a comment, send us an email, a message. Let us know how you're enjoying these conversations so that we can continue to provide more content for My Daily Bread. I love you, And I'll see you next week on My Daily Bread, the podcast. Have a great day.